It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
And while we're showing a photo of Legato the Cat, I will let you know that she's happily sitting out on the back porch right now. Normally she runs upstairs the moment this show starts. She doesn't want to be anywhere near.
Run to the back porch.
Well, we let her out it's very funny. We come down the stairs, and for those of you who are listening to the podcast, you didn't see Legato, but we talk about Legato the cat, and we talk about Basil the dog on the show all the time. They are the official mascots of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. And I got to get these bells a little closer. When we get up on Sunday, she comes downstairs with us. She gets a little treat to start the day.
That's you and Kathleen.
Yep, and often she just goes and looks at the door as if the door will magically open to the back porch.
Well,
now,
she's a cat.
She's a cat, I know. Well, I'm trying to train her to open the door so she can do it herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then she wanders out into the back porch, and today she's sitting there watching the birds at the suet feeder. I've decided we're getting towards the end of the season, and there's still lots of stuff. It's so green. It's so crazy green in the middle of October. It's nuts. But I thought, we've got birds migrating, and we're going to tell a sad tale of a migrating bird later on in the show. I'm not going to do that now. I'm not going to start that way. But anyway, and she's still out there. I said, come on in. Show's about to start. And she said, nah.
She's like,
nope. No, not even that. It was just like, yeah, whatever. So she's gonna have to watch birds for a while because there's nobody to let her in right now. I'm not wandering back there. Well, I'm done. You're out there for a while.
And my dog Basil's out on the front porch. He's got the ceiling fan on, and he's camped out.
All right, so that's how we start our days. And how do you start yours? Welcome everybody to the show. Yes,
and you did hear what I said.
What?
And what you said, it's October 10th. The ceiling fan is on. My ceiling fan is on. Your yard is green. My yard is green.
I'm watching the cottonwood. We have the most magnificent cottonwood, not on our property, but across the alley. That tree is huge. And if it ever comes down, I'm moving. I'm done. I'm done with this neighborhood because it is so gorgeous. And it has barely begun to turn. It's I'm kind of surprised, and I think it's like going to happen overnight. It's going to be all boom like that.
Yeah. And then all the leaves will be down, boom like that. Well, as soon as the switch turns, it's.
Yeah.
As one of the weathermen on we'll talk to Rick DiMaio, our meteorologist, in hour 2. But as one of the TV weathermen said, well, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I can't even find the shoebox yet.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting. Okay, we got to give that guy a ding as well.
WGN, and it wasn't Skilling; it was somebody else.
Okay, great. Welcome to the show, folks. Wait, boy, I am so excited to have our guest on today, the woman who wrote this book of sound mind. This is a slight departure from what we usually do on this show, but it is the natural world, natural sciences. I got pitched on this and immediately said, yeah, I want to talk about this. This is so cool. And so Peggy and I have gone through the book, read all the footnotes. Actually, I have not read all the footnotes.
I read a couple of the footnotes.
I read a couple of them too,
Yeah.
but I read all the footnotes. I didn't read the references.
There's even a glossary.
Yeah, I love the glossary. We might just go through that and explain things to people. But we're talking to Dr. Nina Kraus, PhD, this morning, and I think, and I've got, as I mentioned in our social media, lots of visual and oral aids today. This is going to be a really fun show, so grab your coffee, curl up in front of your computer or your device, whatever it is, and
Or your cat or your dog or your...
That's right. And as Peggy mentioned later on, of course, Rick DiMaio. Also later on, Peggy and I will be just chatting about various things that are going on in the world of gardening and the environment. So, without further ado, I'm going to wait till I'm about to go to you, Nina. So get ready there. There she is, and there she pops into place. I didn't want to surprise you. I didn't want to sucker punch you there by going to the shot. That is our guest, and I'm betting that the audio is not up. Nope, it is now. Good morning, Nina Kraus.
Well, good morning.
It is
Next
so.
time I bring my harp.
You play what?
Harmonica.
Harmonica? You play harmonica?
And guitar.
Just for fun.
Well, see,
but I'll bet I could get your pussycat to come in.
I bet you could get my pussycat to run away. And
Legato doesn't like music.
She hates it when I sing. Now
Well,
we should talk about that, Nina, because I don't know what that is. When I'm talking to her,
there's a million jokes here.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I don't like it when I sing. Nobody. All right. The title, my singing group.
And Mike, you are overmodulating, by the way.
I am. Wow. Let's pull this back. Okay. How's that? Is that a little better?
Better.
Okay. Don't want to do that. No overmodulating, because this is a weird thing, Nina. And as an audio, not technician, but a student of audio, with the setup here, yeah, I cannot hear myself in the headset. I wear the headset so I can hear you guys. But the way it's set up, if I hear myself coming back, there will be feedback on this. So I have to mute the sound that goes into my own headset. So I can't tell when I'm being too loud here, and I tend to be loud because of my theatrical background. And so it's a very odd thing. I hear myself kind of muffled. I can pull the headset a little bit off like that and then hear myself in the real world, but I do not hear myself through the headsets. So it's a very peculiar way of doing it, because I'm a radio guy, and for, I don't know, 40 years, I've been hearing myself come through the headsets and knowing it's going out in the air, and now I don't. So very, very odd. But that's maybe something you can comment on as well. And again, Nina Kraus, let me give you your full introduction here, because I'm probably only going to do it once, is the Hugh Knowles Professor of Neurobiology, Communication Sciences, and Otolaryngology at Northwestern University. You're a neuroscientist, director of the renowned Brainvolts lab, and you can go to brainvolts.northwestern.edu and find out a lot of this stuff and even more. There's just tons of stuff. How long have you been studying audio, Nina?
Probably, in utero.
Okay, there you go. You get that as well. But seriously, folks, all right, and getting paid for it.
Okay. Well, that happened in graduate school. But let me tell you, so I started out majoring in comparative literature, and then because I was brought up in a house where multiple languages were spoken, and my mom also was a pianist, and so sound seemed important. So I started with comparative literature, and then I took some biology and really loved that, and decided, okay, I'm going to be a bio major. Then I discovered a book called Biological Foundations of Language, and thought, wow, this is great. I can marry the biology and the language. And so eventually I decided to go to graduate school in neuroscience to study sound in the brain. And that's when it occurred to me that they would pay me to learn. And they've been doing that ever since. And it's just the best gig ever. I feel I'm so incredibly lucky. My job is to learn and to think about cool stuff. And I started out. They gave me a stipend of $200 then, and my rent was $50 a month. And I was set.
Wow. It's wonderful to do the things you like, and actually to get paid for them, which is even better when that happens. So let's get into this wonderful book about sounds and the brain. You
Or the subtitle, How Our Brain Constructs a Meaningful Sonic World.
Right. And for some of us, it isn't so meaningful. But that is always the goal, I guess, is to construct a meaningful sonic world. You talk about how the process of hearing is not as straightforward as the old textbooks would have you believe. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that, I think we tend to look at things, even as a society, in a rather compartmentalized way. And so when we think about hearing, traditionally, people think about the ear and connect it to the brain, and just within the context of the classical auditory network. But what it turns out, and really what my book is about, is that the sound brain, the hearing brain, is vast, much vaster than we have traditionally thought about it. So not only does the ear connect our brain to sound, but our brain connects all of us and our ear to all of the different processes that are going on in the brain. Let me just break this down for a minute, because the hearing brain, when I say the hearing brain is vast, I mean that it engages how we think. So what we know about sound, how we think, how we feel. We all know that sounds evoke feeling. Movement. So, sound itself is movement. And to create sound, you have to be moving. Something has to move. So our moving brain, and how we bring in information from our other senses together with the sound. So if you think about the hearing brain engages, technically we can say, our cognitive, sensory, motor, and reward networks. So that's how we think, feel, move, and gather information from our other senses all at once. And that is our hearing brain and our sound mind.
And I believe it was Proust who was a believer in of smell being a sense that evoke. Oh, look at this. Okay, thank you. There's Swan's Way. Um, and you make the argument in your book that hearing evokes memories in a very, very strong way. I imagine all of our senses do, but you make the argument in the book that we have over analyzed sight at the expense of hearing. And that is a fact because we didn't even do studies of the kinds of things you're doing long after we were examining sight. Um, how is it that our hearing evokes memories?
Well, the hearing brain is vast and it engages what we know. So it engages our memories very, very deeply. Um, and so, and you're right, our other senses do, and they do so in combination. But, we really, memory and sound are linked so very, very, very tightly. We learned how to, we learned our ABCs with sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
We Historically, the bards sang what history was. Um, there is a tight connection, and we need it from an evolutionary standpoint. If you think about, we need to make sense of sound for our survival. So, imagine you're any kind of animal and you hear a sound, and you need to be able to pull that sound out of the sonic scape and decide, is this something that I can mate with? Is this something that I can eat? Is this something that will eat me? And you learn, if you survive, you learn from experience. And so those memories are very important. And every time a particular sound happens, I was just thinking the sound of my neighbor's front door. It's just a sound I've heard again and again and again, and I can be anywhere and hear that sound, and I'll know what it is because I have the memory of that.
You write about that in the book, and that was one of the places that I highlighted. You say there's an ongoing conversation in neuroscience and philosophy called the binding problem. It boils down to a question of how the brain coordinates all its inputs, the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches, guided by a lifetime of accumulated experience into a concrete whole. How does the combination of ever accumulating sensory input produce the knowledge, that's my phone ringing, or I hear my brother pulling into the driveway?
To the driveway.
Yeah, where does the necessary unity come from? Somehow, the brain gathers information and binds it into a unified perception. And this is all done instantaneously.
Yeah.
Boom.
Without even conscious thought.
Absolutely. And my book has 80 pictures. It has 80 illustrations. 40 of them were created by Katie Shelley, who is an artist in living in Spain at the time, and we were going back and forth with all of these illustrations. And the reason I bring them up now is that there's one, I believe it's in the chapter called The Quest, but it's the one that you read from, where I talk about the binding problem. And if you look at how sound enters the brain, and there's this nice illustration of how the sound enters the brain, and then there is this feedback network that is constantly feeding forward and back. This is very much a two-way street, and a very important part of the brain, I think very appropriately called the midbrain. The midbrain is really in the middle of the action because it gets information from outside all of our senses and from our thinking, feeling, moving. and brain, and brings all of this together such that with time, as we learn, we really are able to automatically hone in on what it is that is important and relevant, most relevant for us.
And one of the things that fascinates me, and we're going to get to a clip here in a second, but one of the things that fascinates me is when you explain how air movement outside of our bodies, outside of our heads, go into the ears, then have to be translated to electrical impulses that go to our brain, and that happens actually faster than sight, as you explained. That's hard to wrap your head around, that it happens that quickly.
Well, but think about it. You know, if you just think about a visual object, it's there, it's static. Even if it's moving, this is happening in pretty slow time in comparison with sound. I mean, sound. If I just say the word "say," you know, it's over really quickly, and the acoustic ingredients that our brain has to respond to are happening on the order of microseconds. And so you need to have a brain system that is really fast and really able to pull information at a very, 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 very fast time scale.
All right.
Process it all and differentiate each little sound.
That's right.
All right.
It's an amazing job.
Yeah, it does. So I want to talk about some of the work you've done, and this illustrates it very well. Bear with us. This is a clip of you from the Kennedy Center 3 years ago. Can you set up what you were doing at the Kennedy Center?
Yeah. Well, I was invited by Francis Collins, and who's the director of the NIH, and Renee Fleming, who is the artistic director at the Kennedy Center, decided that it was about time that the National Institutes of Health really looked at music from a biological perspective. And so there, were a number of us worldwide who had been doing this, and we were brought in, and we gave these various talks, and at the end of that, what has evolved is, importantly, some funding from the National Institutes of Health for music. But the Kennedy Center part was to engage the public and to, do what, I'm hoping that my book does, which is to make people aware make people aware of how important music is to our lives and to who we are. And so they staged a number of events. And the one that I think you'll be showing is one of these events at the Kennedy Center.
All right, let's take a look at that right now. I think you're going to find this really fascinating.
So a sound wave comes in to the ear, and then we measure the electricity. And you can see that the sound wave and the brain wave physically resemble each other. In fact, so much that you can take the brain wave and play it out through a speaker, and it will sound like the sound wave. So here's the sound wave. Here's the brain's response. So how is this even possible? How can we listen to how the brain listens? So imagine you're playing an instrument, and this is the movement of air molecules producing sound, and we're all used to the idea of translating sound waves into electricity through a microphone, and then we can play that through a speaker. We can then listen to those sound waves, and the currency of the nervous system is electricity. So with scalp electrodes, we can measure the brain's response to sound, and we now have an electrical signal which we can play through a speaker. So let me give you some examples. Sound waves and brain waves. First, you will hear a Rhodes piano playing funky music, and then you will hear the brain responding to those very notes. The brain. So we have a lot to work with. Let's hear some Beatles. First, some piano. The brain. Heart and soul, and the brain. My all-time favorite. And here is Renee. So Renee will sing a few bars of The Sound of Music, and the last 3 words will be the response of the brain to her voice. So we can measure the brain's response to a beautiful voice like that. I want you to hear a musically enhanced brain playing Amazing Grace. And now you will hear Amazing Grace played through a brain that has sustained a concussion. So again, we have a lot to work with to learn about sound processing in the brain and brain health.
That is amazing stuff, speaking of amazing. And the idea that you can attach electrodes to a person's scalp and play them out over a speaker. And that allows you to do all kinds of investigations and treatments that formerly would not have been possible. I also note that
Learning about how students learn.
yeah, and I need to add a couple. I got 3 observations about that clip. One, that's one of the coolest dresses ever. All right, that you were wearing. 2, you're kind of like me during a presentation in that you pace like a caged tiger. And 3, what were the acoustics like at the Kennedy Center?
The acoustics were great, and it really matters. It really matters. You know, I mean, sound is filtered all the time through various parts of our brain. I mean, just take your cell phone into different rooms as you're listening, and you know you'll get that experience firsthand. About moving, you know, my first language is Italian, and so you know, if I'm going to speak at all, I have to move a lot.
Yeah, of course. But just playing the music, and we have other examples here representing. So, yes, Peggy.
A question I would like to ask for some of the people watching who haven't read the book. So what are we listening to when it's the brain playing the music? What are we actually listening to coming through the speaker? What's the electrical charge coming from?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the currency of the nervous system is electricity. As I'm talking to you now, the neurons in your brain that respond to sound are producing electricity. So, we are able with scalp electrodes to pick up that electricity created by neurons. And then once we have electricity, in the same way as, you have electricity that's produced by, as I'm speaking into a microphone right now, and then you can play it back through a speaker, you can do the same thing with the electricity that you are able to gather from the brain, and then play it through a speaker, and you can hear the neural activity.
All right, we will follow up on that, but unfortunately, we have to pay some bills here. So we're talking to Nina Kraus, PhD. She's the author of Sound Mind. We've got more when we come back. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. More clips too. A lot of some fun stuff. So please stick around.
This guy is a real jerk. He treats the preserves like trash, leaving a mess wherever he goes. The garbage goes in the can, jerk. We said in the can. If kids know this behavior is idiotic, so should adults. Thanks, boys. This definitely isn't the way to get rid of your trash. Hey, jerk, that's a garbage can, not a basketball hoop to work on your terrible shot. Come on, jerk. Seriously? This isn't even the worst jerk move we see. Some jerks do much more than litter. They find spots and turn them into their personal landfill. Jerks like this are the worst kind of jerks. How'd you like it if we came to your home and did this to your front lawn, jerk? These jerks dump and run, leaving us to clean up their mess. We appreciate people who clean up after themselves and the jerks. Trash in the preserves can be harmful to wildlife and easily ruin the experience for others. So don't be a jerk.
You can help slow climate change in 2021 by composting. And you don't even need a backyard. By composting communally in multi-unit buildings across Chicagoland, Collective Resource Compost has diverted 7,000 tons of food scrap since 2010. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Here in the city. Oh, and there's the L. Okay. Right outside my window. or not.
Well, that's Legato trying to get back in.
Yeah, I think so. She's here. She's right under my feet now. But this is something I recorded the other day in anticipation of the show.
We're in the city.
We downtown. I was downtown. I had an appointment downtown, so just turned on the and here's the guy banging with the drums. And Nina, what are we dealing with here? By the way, it's Nina Kraus, author of Sound Mind. What happens to our brains when we're fighting to communicate over noise like this every single day of our lives?
Oh, like so many things. I think one of the important points about sound is that it connects us. And it connects us to the lived world and to the living world. And if there's a lot of racket, that will get in the way of that communication and that connection.
And you notice, by the way, that the sound went away, and I went, and we do that all the time, don't we? A lot of times, and you write about this in the book, you don't even notice sound until it's gone. And then you say, oh, that lawnmower was on, that air compressor was on, something else was going on. And then you notice it
in the house or whatever,
right. You notice it by the absence of the sound.
You know, I think we live in a constant state of alarm that we aren't even aware of, because, you know, these sounds that are, you know, just the loud truck that's idling outside, or a very noisy compressor, you know, it's there, and we're pretty good at tuning it out, so we think. You know, we're not consciously aware of it, but as you mentioned, the minute it goes off, you breathe this sigh of relief, because you know, we really need to have, first of all, we need to be able to hear our thoughts. We need to be able to hear each other, and we need to be able to connect with the world in a way that that is meaningful. And I think that you know, again, from a deep evolutionary root, you know, how if what you're hearing is maybe the sound of an avalanche far away, you know, how can you pay attention really to what you're doing, and how can you feel calm if you're hearing this roar in the background that is distressing to us biologically? And that's what I like to say. And really, the book is all about how our sound mind is so interconnected, again, with how we feel, how we make sense of the world. So what we need to do is to honor our sonic environment and to curate it in a way that makes us healthiest.
Well, speaking of the sorts of things the brain and audio do for us, and ways they trick us. Let me show this. This is fascinating. This is from the BBC, but it's something, again, that is you mentioned in the book. Most of these clips, you know, I would read, and you would say, oh, you need to go look this up. Well, of course I did. I was immediately on YouTube and trying to find these
busy
clips.
watching Snowball the Cockatoo, for example.
Oh, we're getting to Snowball the Cockatoo in just a bit. But this is fascinating. Sorry. Let's go back here. Sorry about that. That is amazing stuff also. What is the brain doing at that point?
Yeah, again, you know, it brings up the binding problem, if you will. It's not a problem. It's a glorious feat that the brain does, is it really binds information from our senses, and it binds information also to what we know. And in fact, if you know that the guy is just saying it, or that the audio is constantly ba, you can look at the dude producing the tha sound, and you will hear ba, because you know that, and you know what to listen for. And it's very important, and this is something that we do throughout our lives, is we learn what to pay attention to, we learn what to listen to. You know, our sound mind is one that changes constantly throughout our lives based on our life in sound, which is again why it is so important for us to be making the best decisions for our sound minds and for the sound minds of our children educationally and socially.
Another aspect of sound and the brain that you write about in the book is rhythm. You have this very brief paragraph about how much fun it is to hear a child being out of sync and not getting the rhythm right. But I've got a story about that, and it's my mother who had this playmaker, whatever they call the Wurlitzer organ at home that she got later in life, and she would get up there and consistently be off the beat. And my brother and I were, because we were both singers, musicians, and we're just amazed that she could not seem to get on the beat. And it was sweet actually, but a little disconcerting to us. And then you write about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and this scene that was set to drums. Can you set this up just a little bit for us?
Yeah, when you think about rhythm, you often think about music, but in fact, there's so much rhythm in speech and in language. And in fact, some kids who have difficulty learning language or learning to read also and have difficulty with various rhythmic skills. But this clip that I think you'll show really illustrates beautifully the connection between rhythm and language.
All right, and it is, you'll see the screen on screen. You'll see the scene from the movie, and then you'll see the drummer who is playing the rhythm of the speech, done by two excellent actors, by the way, which also helps because good actors have better rhythm. To prove that, just watch a good actor do Shakespeare. But you can even do it in contemporary language. So, wow. The first time I saw that, I think my eyes popped out of my head, and my ears popped out of my head. I had to watch it again and again and again, and I showed it to Kathleen, and we both just said, wow. But that illustrates the rhythm of speech, and you say that extends into reading as well.
Yeah. You need to know where the important information in sound stops and starts. When we're speaking, we don't have punctuations. We don't have, we're not speaking in words that are separated by spaces on a page. And yet we know, and largely from the rhythm of speech, where the meaningful units are.
You
Go ahead,
bring
Peggy.
up an interesting point towards the end of the book. Actually, really far at the end, you say text and emails are rapidly supplanting phone calls. With this change, information can be conveyed, but context suffers. So it's like all of a sudden our brain, the evolution is of how we process all this is totally changed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's deep. I think we really need to think about that and think about, is this the kind of, is this the way we want to communicate?
An excellent question. But in terms of rhythm, another thing you point out in the book is that humans obviously have a sense of let me put it this way, my mom didn't, but humans can have a sense of rhythm, but so can very few animals, specifically birds, but you also mentioned elephants and sea lions. And my question is, wow, how do we know that? I want to see an elephant doing a two-step or something. But which brings us to Snowball, the cockatoo. And again, just another one of those references you made in the book, and I said, okay, I'm going to go
Mhm.
track this down. So take a if you want to see a bird who has real rhythm, snow. Oh, I could watch that all day long.
There's an
Uh,
entire video of all of 14 of Snowball's different moves. I don't know if
oh,
you saw that
really?
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe I should have, but I was so attracted to Another One Bites the Dust, and I hope that we don't get smacked down by YouTube for playing that because it's just too funny to watch. Why is it? Do you think, or do you have any idea, Nina Kraus, uh, why birds seem to be on the same page in terms of sound with human beings?
Yeah. Well, birds are vocal learners, as are humans. And the way that you learn is by imitating. And some birds are really good imitators, as we know. Um, Kids right away, just as you make sounds, woo, your baby will go woo, and you just they're really 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 good at
Mhm.
at imitating, and that's how language is learned. And other animals can't really do that. Like your dog will certainly understand, let's go outside, but your dog is not going to be moving um, rhythmically, nor will he imitate you and say something like "go outside." So it's really that connection that is very very important, and it's a connection with another living thing. A very cool thing about Snowball is that if you dance with him, he wants to dance with you. But
Mhm.
if you're dancing off the beat, he'll turn away. So
Oh no.
rhythm and sound connect us.
Oh, Snowball would have hated my mother. Uh, so speaking of birds, one more clip here. I want to before we get into slightly more serious uh, topics. One more clip I want to show because speaking of birds imitating sounds, this is absolutely amazing from uh, Attenborough. David Attenborough, who goes out and in the wild. This is in Australia, and just watch. And thanks to the BBC for that. That is stunning. I mean, human beings can do impersonations. I do a fairly passable John Wayne, but I can't do a
Jimmy
chainsaw.
Stewart.
Jimmy
And
Stewart,
and
yeah.
thanks to Kathleen, she's posting some of these links too.
Oh, great. Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate that. Uh, I don't know if that says as much about hearing as it does about the ability, the mimicry of certain birds. It's just remarkable that they have that ability. I don't even know what that says about our own hearing. What do you think, Nina?
Well, I think it says a lot about our hearing. And also, if you look at birds, birds are obviously tuned into their sonic environment. And from an ecological perspective, one of the things that we learned when the world went silent with COVID is that we were able to hear the birds better. And at first, people thought, oh, well, that's just because it's quieter. But actually, and Mike, you're a sound engineer, you know that it's possible to measure how loud and the bird songs themselves. And it turned out that the birds were not singing louder. In fact, they were singing more quietly because they didn't have to sing over the racket. And since they weren't um, expending so much energy trying to be heard, they were then able to sing more elaborate and intricate songs. And, what's sexy to a lady bird is the intricacy of the song. And so, this is really important for the survival of the species.
Let's talk just a little bit here about the pathology of the brain and what happens when brains are damaged. Um, here's here's an example of that. This is and you did some of this in the video clip we showed earlier, but this is Amazing Grace. Oops, it would help if I actually turn the audio on. Here we go. All right. This is Amazing Grace, brainwaves that you recorded coming out from what you call a hurting brain. Nina Kraus, what could cause that?
Well, certainly getting hit in the head, so a concussion. Since making sense of sound is one of the hardest jobs that we ask our brain to do, because we have to make sense of these cues that are happening in fractions of seconds. So if you get hit in the head, you can imagine how that can disrupt this very, very, very fine and elaborate system. And we've been studying our athletes at Northwestern University, our elite Division I athletes. We have a grant through the National Institutes of Health where we've been studying all 500 of the healthy athletes, males and females across all sports, at the beginning and at the end of every season. But if any athlete sustains a concussion, then we measure their brain's response to sound immediately after the concussion occurs, and then at regular intervals following that. And what we've been able to find is that, in fact, the response to sound is disrupted, the timing is disrupted, and some of the magnitude and the richness of the details that we ordinarily need to pull out of sound, that is now gone or disrupted. And you can imagine an athlete really needs to make sense of sound in a complex acoustic space.
Well, as you mentioned in the book, athletes have a different perception of sound, as do musicians from other people.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things that we we're able to do, since we are measuring the responses to sound in these elite athletes at the beginning and at the end of every season, we took 500 of these athletes, and we wondered whether any of the ingredients of sound would be enhanced the way they are in musicians and in bilinguals. First of all, you should know that sound has ingredients, the same way as a visual object has a texture, size, weight, and color. A sound also has ingredients like pitch and timing and timbre. And one of the reasons that sound is so often overlooked is because it is invisible. And we've learned that musicians are especially good at enhancing the harmonics in sound, and they pull out certain parts of timing extraordinarily well. And this is very, very important, not only for music, but for language. For the difference between a B and a P is a millisecond, microsecond change in harmonics and in timing. Bilinguals also have enriched sound processing, and they particularly are able to enhance the fundamental frequency of sound, which is important for pitch. And we wondered, well, did the athletes have any particular enhancement in any of the sound ingredients? And they didn't. But what we did discover is that the athletes had very quiet brains. So, as I said, the currency of the nervous system is electricity, and there's always, the brain is always on. And if you can think of the disorganized electricity that is happening as a form of static, the athletes have less of that. They have very quiet brains, enabling them to hear all sound ingredients with greater clarity. So to me, it's really interesting that this is why it's so fun to be a biologist and to be looking at sound, because the bilingual, the musician, and the athletes all have enhanced processing of sound, but they do it in different biological ways.
It's interesting, and we're almost out of time here. We're actually out of time, but I'm going to run over just a little bit anyway because this is too fascinating. I intuited that being bilingual had advantages. I didn't know what they were until I read your book, but I have always regretted. I grew up in a bilingual household, Polish, except my parents spoke Polish, did not teach us the language. I wish they had. And I've always felt it was a missed opportunity. And I just intuited that there's something good about that. If you know more than one language, it's got to help you some way. And you're showing this in your research.
Yeah. In fact, the bilingual mind seems to be more flexible in dealing with complex tasks that involve quick decision making. And we've done a bit of work in economically impoverished areas where we have looked at people's responses to sound who can be disrupted by poverty. But what we've found is that if you speak another language, it can offset some of those degrading effects of living in an impoverished, and especially as a sonically impoverished environment, one where often there is a lot of noise and there is not as much one-to-one interpersonal language contact. Music also can help offset this neural signature, if you will, of poverty. So, again, sound is so important, and it's so under-recognized. And there are things that we as human beings can do in our society. We can really make choices educationally for learning another language. We can honor that. We can make sure that every child gets a musical education. We can make choices for ourselves and our children, and our society, but by asking a particular noise, is it necessary? There are many noises that are entirely necessary, but there are many that just aren't. And if we can be aware of them, and we can, as a society, move to regain our our ability to think and to feel more calmly, I think that would really help us.
As a final note, the power of sound is evident in the way it reaches people with dementia. And I've seen that. My caroling group has gone into senior citizen facilities where people are barely there. And you start singing, and they start singing along. And these memories come from decades ago, and suddenly they're there again. They're present, and it all has to do with the music. And this is something else you've seen in your research.
Very much so, and it really amplifies the point that we are what we do. So if we spend a lot of time making music, for example, or engaging in positive ways with sound so that we are strengthening our sound mind. We strengthen what we know, we strengthen those memories, and we do know that based on what we have learned and what we have spent our time doing, the connection between sound and memory is very, very deep, and often in people who have a hard time remembering much of anything, will still remember the music that they know how to make. And I want to shout out to there's a PBS clip on Tony Bennett, and he has Alzheimer's, and his ability to make music is really remarkable. And by making music, you can bring him, you can bring anyone. You don't have to be Tony Bennett. We've all sung songs. You can bring anyone back, at least for a while, into a world of connection.
Yeah. The whole Tony Bennett story is really, I keep saying amazing, but he can perform where he can't do other tasks, but he apparently still has the chops. And once he's in music,
Patterns are there.
Yeah, even though he's in the midst of Alzheimer's, he can still do that. They won't let him perform on stage anymore, but he still. I think they're still recording with him, if I'm not mistaken. And he's 95 or something, and in the throes of dementia. And it's that part of it is sad, but it's, again, we witness the power of sound in the human mind
And memory.
Yeah, Nina Kraus. Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
I just said it's a hopeful story.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
This is a hopeful book.
I had one quick question that's
Sure.
probably putting Dr. Kraus on the spot, but you
Okay.
cover so much, and you talk about urban planning, and you talk about where we're going with text and emails. If there's one takeaway for readers from this book, what would you like it to be?
Well, listen. I think that's probably the most important thing. We need to listen to each other. We need to listen to our babies when they're young. We need to listen to our environment. You're bringing up the noise. I think that this issue of, is this necessary, and can we get rid of unnecessary sounds so that we can, in fact, really make sense of the sounds and train our brains to be really good at making sense of sound. So really spending our lives engaging positively with sound, with other people, and through the activities that we do. Actually listening to audiobooks. People are often surprised by how much they remember with an audiobook, because, we've been speaking orally and communicating for hundreds of thousands of years. We've only been reading for a few thousand. So our brains are really, really good at connecting and remembering through sound. Mm-hmm. And that's the big message of my book, I would say, is to listen and to engage in making sound, and it will help us engage with each other and with the lived world.
Well, the greatest compliment I can give a guest is that you made me slop over into the next hour, and we didn't even touch on a number of things that I wanted to talk about, but that's the way these things go. I would tell folks, if you want to learn more about this, pick up a copy of Sound Mind, How Our Brain Constructs a Meaningful Sonic World, published by the MIT Press. Let's give MIT their due here. Thank you so much, Dr. Nina Kraus. We really appreciate the time on a Sunday. I made you get up early. Maybe you can go take a nap now. I don't know. Okay. And I hope we talk very, very soon.
Mike and Peggy, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
That's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. More to come. Please stick around.
Hey, Vic Nakashima here at Bartlett Tree Experts, and today I'm out here in the field with Scott Anderson, certified arborist. Scott, what are we doing today?
We are injecting ash trees to protect them from the emerald ash borer.
The emerald ash borer was first found in the United States in 2002, accidentally brought over from Asia in woodpacking material. Since then, this pest has spread to nearly all native areas of its preferred host, the ash tree. All native ash are susceptible, and they can die within 1 to 3 years of the initial attack. The damage comes from the larvae, which hatch and bore through the bark into the sapwood. Then as they grow, they chew S-shaped galleries into the phloem and cambium, severely damaging the tree's vascular system. So how do you treat for such a pest?
Well, today what we're doing is we're actually injecting the ash trees on this property. So we're actually drilling holes in around the root flare of the tree, setting a plug in there with a little diaphragm, and we actually fill those plugs with a material. That material goes up through the tree, and for 2 years at a time, it protects the tree from the emerald ash borer.
So you're actually drilling into the tree to put the material into the vascular system.
Yep.
The material we inject into the stem works its way up the tree and makes the tissue beneath the bark toxic for the ash borer without causing unintentional harm to pollinators and other wildlife. So the method of injecting, is there anything beneficial about that method?
Yeah, so the material's only going into this tree. It's not going to affect anything else around it. Whereas if you were spraying, you got to watch wind and also what's around, because you don't want the material you're spraying to affect beneficials or get onto, plants that aren't yours, could be your neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Or patio furniture.
Anything, kids, pets.
Vegetable garden. All right, so that's it for now. I want to thank Scott for his time and telling us all about injecting ash trees to treat for the emerald ash borer.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabaga. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawns to rake. Give me all that I can take.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Boy, that was a fun segment. I especially like being able to trot out all kinds of those cool clips. I want Snowball, the cockatoo, to be back on the show.
Check out the video. There's one that breaks down all 14 of Snowball's separate moves.
Really, that just sounds awesome. That would be too involved for this particular show.
No, but you'll have to watch it. You'll be laughing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of speaking of urban noise, etc. Towards the very end, as I had like a fire truck and police going by about a half a block away.
No, I didn't. I didn't catch that.
That was yeah, I know. We just tune it out.
Well, I'm not sure that microphone picks it up. Some of these mics, this mic will pick up me, but pretty much nothing else around here.
This would pick it up, but it was more from the thing of we just tune it out. We're so used to it.
Yeah. I want to call folks' attention to something that, it's kind of interesting. On Instagram this week, we've been posting about Save the Bell Bowl Prairie, which we did a show on. Was that last week? I can't keep track anymore.
Yes, that was last Sunday.
Yeah, wow. And there's a lot of activity involving that right now. People are signing petitions and they're posting about the importance of the prairie. And for those of you who missed the show last week, the Bell Bowl Prairie is right next to Chicago Rockford International Airport. And it's in danger basically of being bulldozed. It's one of the few acres of remnant prairie left in the state of Illinois, which
5-acre dry gravel prairie. Yes.
Yeah. And we've found several endangered species on site. People who are out there
speaking for Jeff Scretny and others. Yes.
Yeah, Jeff Scretny and other folks who have been out there. And the danger is that it's going to be plowed the 1st of November. And I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that the governor is getting wind of this. We can't. It's like cutting old growth trees, as I said last week. It's got to stop. We can't keep paving over our heritage. And given that we're called the Prairie State, and I think sometimes that nickname is now ironic. It has become ironic over the years. We cannot afford to pave over any bit of prairie anymore. Done. Stop. There's got to be a moratorium. There has to be a moratorium. I don't care how important you think this extra space is at the airport. It's not more important.
Cargo. For cargo.
Yeah, for cargo. All right.
Amazon and others.
So
yeah. And it's interesting. I just posted the link, but it's been picked up by WTTW. It's been picked up by national and international things at this point. The noise is getting turned up.
Yeah, the noise is getting louder.
Yeah.
Speaking of noise, but this is good. This is good noise.
Noise, yeah.
And
I just posted the link.
Great, but you can go to our website, and Kathleen said, make sure you say this. And because she posted this right at the top of the page, on the right side of the page, right under receive our newsletter, which I hope you will sign up for, because I don't send it out very often. It doesn't bother you very much.
No, I think a newsletter with this link would be good.
This would be, but there's an icon that says Save the Bell Bowl Prairie. And when you click on it, it goes to the Illinois Environmental Council's petition to stop, just to say to the governor, please consider this prairie and don't let this happen. So I've been pretty amazed by the good noise that has erupted over this issue. So very cool stuff.
Stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have some good news to have somebody back on the show later this month.
Yeah. Then there are other things. I'm going to my list.
Well,
ahead,
I was just watching the Bartlett spot
Oh,
talking about
Emerald
ash
Ash.
borer.
Right. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason I played it. And of course, I forgot exactly why I played it. But go ahead.
So there's a couple articles, and thank you to Skeet for also bringing this to our attention.
And viewer Andrew Fedorowski sent me this very same article.
Yeah, there was a headline this week from WBEZ Chicago, WBEZ.org. Chicago has only 50,000 ash trees left. Should we spend millions to keep them alive? And it's basically talking about the forestry department in the city, and the city trying to figure out, do they want to put the money in to re-inoculate the 50,000 ash trees that are left. Starting in 2008, the city began inoculating the ash trees, which numbered about 96,000 at the time, against the ash borer beetles. But by 2018, with almost half of the population dead and removed, the city decided to stop the inoculations and let the remaining 50,000 ash trees die off. Now that the city has some money, they're trying to decide, do they want to keep the canopy going, or just let them die out? And it's right now causing a little bit of a discussion, let's say.
Yeah.
It says Commissioner Malcolm Whiteside, who leads the Bureau of Forestry, says it would take at least $6 million, or about $120 per tree, to protect the remaining ash for just an additional 3 years. But at the same time, there's other groups like Open Lands, Daniela Pereira, saying,
who has been on this show.
Yeah, we need to take another look.
Well, they're saying that the city's estimates of how long the inoculations last are off.
Yeah.
They say the treatment only lasts for 3 years, and experts estimate the best case scenario for an untreated tree with residual chemicals is a 6-year lifespan.
And the push for funding to maintain and treat some of the city's largest trees comes as the mayor's office has set aside $46 million for planting new baby trees. described as one of the largest planting initiatives in the history of Chicago. But as Daniela Pereira says, quote, "It's really great the mayor's office is putting a lot of money toward tree planting," she said, "but you can't plant a very large tree. So to get the canopy we're losing from our ash decline is going to take decades. One of the best ways to manage the forest would be to save any healthy ash tree you can," Pereira said.
Yeah, and they mentioned that elm trees got saved and there are American elms in Grant Park. They get inoculated because Dutch elm disease is still an issue. So why couldn't you do that to ash trees? I mean, it's a difficult.
Yeah, but there's a connection here with the prairie story as well. You can't just take prairie seeds, prairie plants, and some of the soil, move the prairie, and create a new prairie. And this is the same thing here. Do we let the large canopy die out and plant little baby trees and hope we get a new canopy?
Well, yeah, and what trees are you planting? What are you replacing? Ash trees with. I mean, and then you've got Guy Sternberg downstate who's telling people look for healthy ash trees in the middle of devastation because those might be the ones that have the genetics that are able to withstand the emerald ash borer. And then you plant those seeds. I don't know how that is going right now, but it is. There are. He says he'll be driving along and see the see dead trees, and then there's this ash tree, boom, that is in full leaf, and it's not been treated, and you wonder why. I got a couple of ash trees right out front here in my block that have not been treated, as far as I know. They might have been treated, but they are surviving emerald ash borer, and I keep waiting to see the decline at the top of the tree, but that has not happened, and I guess the city has to make that decision now.
And as the city's planting the new trees, as you say, what are they planting? As the climate shifts, what species are they planting?
Right, exactly, and what effect will that have on the ecosystem? I mean, it's tough enough for trees in the city.
The insects and everything, yeah.
And our canopy is declining. We have not paid as much attention to our canopy in the city of Chicago in the last decade, marked by certain administrations. And it's time to pay attention to it again. I also, yesterday, by the way, was World Migratory Bird Day. We have been talking, Peggy and I have been talking, it's time to have some bird experts back on the show. We had there was an unfortunate incident on my front porch the other day. I looked out the front door and there was a dead bird right on the porch. Never seen that before. Never had that happen. Been here 21 years. Have not had that happen. And you said it was a hermit thrush. You thought it was
I think it's a hermit thrush, yeah.
Obviously migrating. And somehow, I guess, slammed into our front door. And as you said, it's sort of odd because we're tucked away here. There's lots of foliage. It's not like
your front door isn't like right out in front. You've got to get to your front door.
Right. You'd have to work hard to slam into our front door. And I don't know what happened. But it was deader than a doornail. Just
like
lying
I
there.
mentioned a year or two ago, I had the same. That was in part how I was able to ID it so fast. I'm like, I had the same thing. I had a hermit thrush hit my back door or a back window. I walked out like, what? It was right around this time of year too.
Interesting. And sad, but if it can happen in an ordinary home like mine, you know that downtown is just a graveyard for migrating birds. And speaking of which, I saw a story the other day that I've been meaning to post that I hadn't, about how Pittsburgh, speaking of birds and more bird mortality, um, Pittsburgh is getting it right in terms of its lighting. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about that and I'm trying to see. I thought I had that handy,
Yeah.
but the idea that here it is, their dark sky ordinance. It's the first major city in the United States to pass a dark sky ordinance. Let me call this up for a second here. Hang on.
I know Audrey Fisher's watching. She's probably got the link to that as well.
Yeah. And here it is. Um, in September 2021, Pittsburgh became the first major city to rethink how urban lighting will be conducted, passing a dark sky ordinance, not only for the visibility of the night sky, but also to use less energy, to help plants and animals by maintaining a crisper day-night cycle, to reduce glare for better night vision, and to benefit those in poorer neighborhoods who are disproportionately negatively affected by wasteful overlighting. And that's good to see. We in Chicago didn't get it right. All right, and we're still in the process of replacing 270,000 lights in the city. Some things about that are better. It will save energy, so it will save some money. But the brightness and the skewing towards the blue end of the spectrum was really not addressed. And as you remember, several years ago, we went out and did a test with a lighting expert. We dragged along Alderman Scott Wagasback with us on I think it was an chilly April night, and
Yeah, it was a chilly evening. Yeah, Monica Eng was out there with us. A few other
yes,
people.
who now works for Axios. She's no longer at WBEZ, so I've been getting the Axios daily headlines from Monica Eng and her partner, whose name I cannot remember right now. So,
Yeah.
but we could have done it right, and lots of folks tried to get the city to pay attention to this, but they weren't having it. They weren't going to listen. That's part of the problem I have with bureaucracies, is that
Contracts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had the lights bought. They were stored somewhere in a warehouse, and they weren't going to even entertain a notion that you could put a more effective light up in the city of Chicago. So, what can I tell you?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted.
And I was going to mention real quick, we can get to a couple of these things afterwards because we got a text from Rick that he's only got 20 minutes today. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping we get a signal from him because he's not in town, right?
yeah, he's up at Horicon Marsh.
Yeah. I wish I was up at Horicon Marsh. That'd be.
Listening to birds and not the lawnmower I'm hearing
Yeah.
out the window right now.
Yeah. I got word from Katie Tricoli at WRWO Radio in Ottawa that their festival was a success. The Fresh from the Midwest. Unfortunately, Mother
And
Nature,
rain.
opened up on them about 1 p.m. So they had to cut it short, I guess, by a few hours.
It was the thunderstorm was the big issue down there.
Yeah.
But I also saw that WRWO has it. You can go to their website and see some of the clips.
Great. I haven't done that. I didn't realize that.
I saw that go by on Facebook.
Okay. And we didn't. If there's, I was going to mention this oil spill in California, which is rapidly.
Speaking of birds.
Yeah, because dead birds are beginning to wash up.
Yeah. And I saw there was something on the news last night that I saw, and I haven't seen it in print yet. So this is the Southern California oil spill based on a pipe breaking. That this pipe has been compromised for more than a year, they're finding. That it's an underwater oil pipe. Line 5 comes to mind. That's been compromised for more than a year. It was known about, and it finally gave way.
Doesn't surprise me, because when you have an oil pipeline, it's going to spill. And at the same time, we have line 3, Enbridge line
Enbridge.
in Minnesota, which is essentially had its work completed. So now it's pumping tar sands. I read an article somewhere, maybe heated. I think it was Emily Atkin maybe wrote about this and said that if you look at the good that the Biden administration did by shutting down the Keystone XL and the bad that comes from this new pipeline opening, it's a wash. So basically, we've stood still. We're in the same place, and
line 5, much as it's Michigan
that
governor's trying to
goes under
away,
the
Canada's
straits
saying
that
no.
goes under the Straits of Mackinac. That's the line 5, and now
Canadian
the
government saying you can't do that. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping the governor of Michigan has other ideas. All right, we're going to have to see if we can get Rick DiMaio here for a little bit. I have no idea what the signal will be like when he checks in. It's always.
But he sent a pretty picture in text.
Oh, did he? It's that's true. There, I did get that. Yeah, it's a gorgeous.
Email that picture to yourself and post it.
You know what? During the break, I'm going to send it to myself and see if we can pop it up here so people can see where Rick is this morning. We'll be right back. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
Life is an ocean, streaming alone, ripples of motion, hitting us all. Yeah.
Dive in, your time to win. Our hearts all in. Let's let the fun begin. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. Climbing high, I see you diving. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you diving high, I see you climbing high, I see you diving. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive in. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard.
You have the ability to give your soil a superpower. It's called composting. If you don't have a backyard, you need to contact Collective Resource Compost. CRC has diverted 7,000 tons of food scraps since 2010. They bring you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter from your kitchen, they swap it out and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us. And let's, okay, there's no Rick DiMaio there yet. However, we can tell you where he is. So maybe we just pop this up and wait to see if Rick joins us. I wonder if
he's listening to birds.
Yeah.
Looks like that's standing on the side of his car, taking a photo over the roof.
Could be. Yeah. Oh, and I got also a text from our guest, and I think she figured it out. But Nina said, "Am I done?" I'm sorry, Nina. I apologize. She was watching us for a while, I'm sure, and sometimes we just go and we finish.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
did he?
We've got he well said 10:30,
Yeah,
so
it is.
maybe he's trying to.
Maybe he's just assuming we're running a tad late, as we occasionally do.
No, I
And
did tell him 10:30,
Mhm.
so hopefully he'll pop in shortly. They're at Horicon Natural Wildlife Refuge
in
up
Wisconsin,
in Wisconsin.
and it's a wonderful place to go uh, to see migrating
Yeah, a lot of
birds.
migration. It's one of the hugest birding areas in the Midwest.
Oh,
Then we got a comment from Diana. She says, "Thanks for bringing up the critical importance of ending line 3 and line 5. Hopefully, we can have a segment about that sometime soon as
we
well."
need to. We haven't talked about those because we haven't gotten to it, but it is important. We have done that in the past, and there's our
There's Rick.
Rick DiMaio right there. Good morning, Rick.
Morning, Mike. Good morning, Peg from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
Oh, best little town by a dam site. Thank you very much.
You would know better than I would, I guess.
Well, my music teacher in high school was from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, and he
Cool.
said that was their motto: "Best little town by a dam site."
That's they work on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
A few
Keep
minutes.
that anyway.
Yeah. So, have you been out to the marsh?
Yeah, we were there yesterday. I've been there a couple of times before. It's one of the most amazing places you'll ever see. I mean, all of a sudden you're driving along and there's this big wide open area. And this is looking northeast on the northern side of the marsh. And there's obviously a lot more to see as you go further south. It's probably not going to be as nice of a walk today because it's pretty breezy out. And there's a lot of clouds, and there's also some rain moving through as well. So we may end up punting on doing that today and then heading over to Madison instead, only because Madison is actually a little bit further west of where the rain will be. So it's more of a meteorological decision rather than a logistical decision. But if anybody has ever been here.
Uh-oh.
You're back.
You're back,
Yeah.
Rick.
Yeah, I know. I assume both.
And you're not.
All
right.
right.
So, question I was going to ask Rick, based on our first hour's guest, Dr. Nina Kraus from Northwestern, you said it's a great thing to see. What are you hearing there?
Oh my God, Peg, it was amazing. Yesterday, we probably heard, I would say, 3 variations of crickets, several birds. There were about 20 people lined up on one of the roads. There's like a 3-mile auto tour. It's like a circle. There was about 20 cars lined up. So they must have known that there was some sort of migratory occurrence at that particular place, because the one road that goes across the marsh that allows people to walk was due to the fact that there were several species of migratory birds in that particular area, which is nice, that the fact that they animals migrating rather than the people trying to get their photographs in. But again, to take advantage of weather like this, you're in the upper 70s and low 80s on the second week of October is kind of crazy. But like I mentioned, we've been. I know I'll come here again. It's not like the marsh is going to go away, but it's not a bad drive. It's about 2.5 hours from Chicago. To stay and eat nearby, and it's absolutely beautiful. So we got here right when sunset. It was about an hour before sunset, so you get a lot of those nice colors. But I have to say, the drive through Lake and McHenry County, Walworth County, Dodge County, Rock County.
Pretty dry.
Colors, even though it's saying about 50% there on the map, they're really, really muted. And if a couple of green counties to the west of Milwaukee, I think I'm in one of those. There's not much color of any brilliance, even though it says 50%. I think the drought has really taken a toll. So even though there was a little bit of yellow here and there, I'd give it like on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as it being brilliant colors, like about a 2 or a 3. So we may actually drive a little bit further north, or just we may come up here again, next weekend when the colors.
A lot of the yellows are probably walnuts
And as you can
and
see,
honey locust.
That Travel Wisconsin full foliage report is fantastic. And then again, you look at the area here of the drought, and this again was updated on Thursday. Extreme drought now across Lake, McHenry County, parts of Racine, Kenosha County, and then severe drought all the way through, Northern Illinois up to about the Janesville area, and then moderate drought through Madison. But you know what? Even in the areas north of where the drought line stops, you can see that the grasses are definitely green, because those will obviously only need like about maybe an inch or two of water to get going again. But the trees just don't look good at all. So again, I think this is the perception that when you don't see drought on the map, also it doesn't show you when you got it over a particular period of time. So hopefully, the further north you go, I feel like I'm the Mike Nowak show correspondent traveling through Wisconsin.
Sure.
That works.
No, I mean, yeah, I really was hoping to see a few more colors, and it just doesn't look very good.
well, it's what we talked about last week. The drought set up the trees for a muted season because they're stressed, so they're not going to produce the colors in the same way they would in a normal year. And you're right, maybe up north it's a little better because, as you can see from the drought map, that's not where the drought is occurring now, but right where we are here in the north part of Illinois, southern part of Wisconsin, it seems it's getting worse in the last few weeks than better.
Yeah, it has gotten worse. And another thing you got to be really careful about. As a kid growing up in New York, we used to always go up into the Catskill Mountains, and then you go further north up into the Adirondacks. You get into parts of the Berkshires, southern areas of Vermont and New Hampshire. And I think one of the reasons why that area of the United States, I'm trying to think of the word, not so much brilliant, but they just produce a better show, is because you have more of a mix of trees between your conifers and your deciduous. So you see a lot of these pines mixed in. And, the pines don't change color. We all know that. So this nice, kind of angular green. And then all of a sudden you have these completely different colors, kind of, all mixed. So I think maybe further north you go, even north and west of Green Bay is probably where you're going to see more of that mixture of the different types of trees. And that'll even make some of the muted colors maybe a little bit better as well. But again, Mike, to your point, even the rain that we got a couple of days ago was like maybe 1.5 inches in some areas. And it has just not gotten any better. And then again, you look at areas of California, most of the state north of Los Angeles, extreme and exceptional. Early this week, there was some showers and some thunderstorms that developed off of an old tropical storm that was kind of weakening and moving northward. So they got parts of south to San Diego and even in the Phoenix area. So even though there could be a return of the fires, which there typically is in the month of October, that's when you get a lot of the wind blowing around, or at least the higher wind speeds blowing the fires from one place to another. It still seems like in the more densely populated Diego and the Phoenix, they've gotten some decent rains. So this is good. So we got the rain where we needed it. Also, in March, most of the western United States is phenomenally dry. And it's really interesting because at Loyola University are going to be doing their projects on how climate change impacts national parks. And all the parks in California, hold on, guys, that's too many parks. I know a lot about what's going on, and let's mix it up a little bit. So we have students doing Yosemite, we have students doing Redwood National Forest, and then up into Oregon, as well as the Grand Canyon. So they're part of their job as reporters, in a sense. Research is a better way of saying it. Is they look at the long-term effects of climate change, and then they look and see what recent climatic events have been occurring, and they have to present periodicals and things like that. So they're doing news as well.
I
At,
I would suggest the Olympic National Park in Washington State.
yeah, no one chose that. No kind of,
Because-
and again, I know it's a great park because you can look at the glaciers as well, but they did choose one park. I believe it was Mount Rainier, which is okay, but I think Olympic is a little bit better because I think it has much better access to the park, and they're going to be looking at not only the revenue that comes into the park, the surrounding area, but also mitigation efforts the parks are using to help the park recover after some of these climatic events.
Well, that's why I suggested Olympic, because they had that horrible heat wave this year, and
Right.
they were very dry, and that's an area that gets a lot of rain, and I would wonder what the consequences of that were in the Olympic
There's
National.
a higher elevation,
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that they can approach this. You got to remember, a lot of these kids, they're taking not going to turn you into tree hugging granola head liberals in a week or weather weenies. So I gotta remain objective to the fact that when you got 5 kids doing one project, they got to divvy it up in a certain way, and hopefully they'll hit a double or a triple. I don't expect them to hit home runs, but
Okay.
as long as they learn, as
But
long as they appreciate.
they'll learn something and have a good takeaway.
All right.
Yeah, and real quickly, I always tell them the day that I saw a graduate student walking into the map room at the University of Wisconsin with a shirt that said, "Go climb a glacier." And I said, "Where is that?" He said, "Glacier National Park." And I was 21 years old, and I'm like, I want to go climb a glacier. And I say, I want you to have that moment. I want you to be inspired. I want you to have that epiphany that is outside of the classroom, that is associated with what you learn and what you may want to do once you're done with school, before your life becomes, rigid with a job and a parent and being a parent, and where the world is at your fingertips and you gotta use it. So I don't want to get too preachy to them sometimes, but I don't want them to think, 5 years climate change class.
Okay, let's take a quick look at a couple of maps here. This is rain ending October 8th. Peggy mentioned that she got how much, Peggy, did you get in your yard?
Almost 2 inches over about 3 days,
And-
including yesterday morning's rain, which came out of the blue.
And I got about 1 inch out of both days of rain. So she got a little more than I did.
Yeah, and you can almost see there's like a little bit of an area from like southern Will County rotates northward. So we had this upper low that was over us for 2 days, and then it kind of moved northward a little bit. But southern Will County and northern Kankakee County had 3 inches of rain in about a 24-hour period. That rain actually rotated all the way to the north and west over Lake County. And then the stuff that came in on Friday came in from the north and west. And then we had a bit of came through early Saturday morning that may have woken you up, and it was like a broom, a heavy shower. But again, this was all last week, and literally latched on to the deep moisture. We had dew points in the upper 60s around here, which is really remarkable for this time of the year. And I think that's also one of the reasons why, and I know I got that information buried somewhere down below, is why our lake water temperatures have remained so warm.
Oh,
At 66,
Yeah, actually, I have got that, which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
That's just amazing.
This
No,
is,
very warm, not very cool, very warm.
Now, this is from, there's two charts here that are fascinating. This is a comparison to the lake water temperatures to last year, October 1st. Of this year was 66, last year 61.7, October 2nd, 66. I mean, they're all like 66, 65 this year, and all the ones from last year are in the lower 60s or upper 50s. So that's quite a difference.
Yeah, so I mean, if you do the math for October 8th, we are 8 degrees warmer than we were last year. But the long-term average, I think, which is another graph, shows that we're about 6 degrees above normal. In addition to that, look at the change from October 1st last year to October 8th last year. It dropped about 3 degrees, and that's generally what it should be doing. The fact that we didn't drop in a period of 7 days, and I've been talking about this for about a month now, is because we've been really warm, very humid during the overnight period in the month of August, and no rain. Rain will always cool you down because those clouds are up at about 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and those raindrops are basically, can easily drop. I think there's another one after this. I went back and looked at 2012, and this link is available to anybody to use. 2012 was when we had our all.
When we had our what?
Say that again, Rick.
2012 was the year we had a warmest lake water temperature ever. We were 78 degrees in the first week of August because that was the year we had the super drought. Remember, that was the year that the lake literally dropped almost 3 feet over the course of 2 years. We had 46 days above 90. That's the second all-time highest. We had 5 days above 100. That's the third all-time highest. And notice at the beginning of the month, we were 63, but by this time, we're already down to 59. So we're even ahead, like literally the trend of the warmest summer ever. So when people say, oh, the lake's warm in mid-October, you can have a normal summer, but as long as you remain really warm in the second half of September and the first couple of weeks of October, you can stay pretty darn warm. So what this shows you also is that the changes that occur in Lake Michigan are not directly related to long-term events. They're really more so related to shorter term. Again, so when you look at the reasons why our lake went down so much this year, it was because we were in a, you look at the reason why the lake went up so much 2 years ago is because we were in really, really wet conditions over a 2-day period, a 2-year period of time. So people directly relate climate change to what's going on in the lakes. That's not true. And it doesn't mean that you don't believe in climate change. It just means that you got to do your research a little, you can get a more fuller understanding of what's going on with the Great Lakes on a shorter time span.
Absolutely. And speaking of rain, this is the 7-day outlook ending October 14th.
Yeah, so this basically begins on Friday, ends next Friday. And it shows that we'll get some rain today. There's a bunch of showers to the south of us that are trying to get themselves going. They'll kind of fall apart a little bit, but then there's another band that's going to set up during the day on Monday. And that's going to be more like Monday night into Tuesday. That's going to be the real significant rain across areas of Oklahoma, Kansas, and western Missouri. And there's going to be a major severe weather outbreak later on today and into tomorrow in that area. We have not had much in the way of severe weather in the deep south in probably 3 months, but that's going to change today, and eventually that rain will get to us. You notice it's not going to be, a dent in the long-term dryness. The pattern stays cool and dry across much of the northern Rockies. That's the 6 to 10 day precip, and I think the next one continues this drier pattern literally through the next week. So even though we cool off a little bit Monday and Tuesday, we go right back to being warm again for Wednesday and Thursday. So a real deep trough out west. Look at all the wetness.
Oh, I can go back to that
a little fast. Yeah. Very, very, beneficial rains from Northern California up into Oregon and Washington. A lot of this is just shore flow that you typically get this time of the year. So they're going to get some really beneficial rains in that area, which is why you probably won't hear much about any. I mean, literally for the rest of the year in parts of Oregon and Washington. But for us, it basically stays dry. And the next few maps are probably the temperature maps showing incredibly mild weather up in the Northeast. And by the way, where I am up here in Wisconsin, all the signs wearing them. And I guarantee you when you get into the up here, it says masks are recommended, but nobody's wearing them. No one. And I'm kind of, angled off to the side here in the lobby of the hotel here, but no one's wearing them.
Wow.
And that's just the way it is. I think when you get into areas where people are used to not being around a lot of people, they're okay with walking around with not wearing masks. But when you go into areas where you're around a lot of people, you put them on. It's just, I think it's just the way we're conditioned. It's more city urban dwellers, because you're around a lot of people, the mask goes on. When you're in an area where there's not a lot of people, you don't wear them. And that's just the way it is. And then again, the reason why I was talking about this is because the weather has been so nice in the Northeast and will continue to do so. By the way, they have been very, very wet across much of the Northeast. And one of the things I was doing on Friday, I literally took 4 webcams from New York, New Hampshire, and Maine, and showed them to my students. And the colors across northern areas of Vermont and Maine are just fantastic. Hopefully, this nice weather across New England will really help their local economy, because they were completely shut down with COVID last year. And the fact that the weather has been so nice, and a lot of people who took early retirement, they don't go leaf watching on the weekends. They do it Monday through Monday. It's 7 days a week. So hopefully this kind of weather will help their local economy as well.
So, I know you got. I'm hearing myself, and that's hard. I know.
Yeah, I got about a minute or so, but that's okay.
Let's do a forecast then, and we can let you go.
Yeah. So, got up to 80 degrees yesterday. The overnight low this morning, I think, made it down to 68. If that's the case, then that ties the record for the warmest low temperature of October. And of course, those records go all the way back to 1871. And why did they go back to 1871? Because on this date, 50 years ago,
150 years ago.
What did I say? 50 years ago?
Yeah, you said 50 years ago. Right.
All right, Rick, get it together. 150 years ago. All right.
And
yes, the Great Chicago Fire. And what's really amazing about the Great Chicago Fire is just about an hour and a half north of where I am in Beaver Dam was the Peshtigo Fire. That fire was much, much worse. So while the Great Chicago Fire in the history of the United States, the Peshtigo Fire was 10 times worse from a standpoint of fatalities, because over 3,000 people died. So guys, think about this. 1871, 3,000 people die in farm country, Wisconsin. That meant that the fire had to be probably 10 times the size of the one in Chicago. Covered a much, much larger, acreage. The Chicago fire was 2,000 acres, over 20,000 acres. And it showed you the vastness of the drought and the heat wave that was going on that particular year. So again, weather and really, really windy weather as well. So the Peshtigo Fire, which I'm sure a lot of people know about, was so much worse than the Great Chicago Fire. So the reason why I bring that up is all of our weather records begin in 1871, because the ones that were in the National Weather Service office in downtown Chicago were burnt up because the National Weather Service office was in City Hall. So we don't have any records from like the previous 5 years or 3 years or something like that. But the bottom line is the 68-degree low this morning ties the record for the warmest ever. The record high for today is 86. I don't think we're going to break that. But we'll definitely probably get close to 80 degrees if we get some sunshine. Even then, if you're not getting out and about and enjoying a day like today, like we always said, it's just a matter of time before we're talking about cold and snow, as opposed to late August weather in early October.
Yeah, California's already gotten snow, so enjoy it.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, was it Mono County, Peg?
I'm not sure where they were showing it on the news last night of all the snow that hit part of California.
Yeah, somewhere in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Yeah, so when you get rain on the West Coast, it's usually snow in the mountains, which is good. Good news for them to get snow. Again, that's short. That's a very, very brief period of time. It could easily go back to being warm and dry.
Get outside today. Do something. Go take a walk. Go listen to the birds.
So
I'm doing my part.
Yes, you are. And give us a forecast for the next week.
So okay. So cloudy, near 80 today. Maybe a little bit of rain. Rain tomorrow, mid 70s, and then looks like dry weather, low 70s for Tuesday. Then right back, a little bit more unsettled by the end of the week. I know I'm breaking up there, so hopefully someone was able to read my lips.
Except you froze. So you said it was dry, and then what happens at the end of the week?
End of the week, more unsettled by the time we get to next weekend. Yeah.
Okay, and when do we break this string? I think we have what we call Indian summer, but this has just not stopped. It has just gone right across, which is what's so odd about it.
Yeah, I mean, Indian summer, you need to have a frost first. We haven't been below 50 degrees yet.
It's crazy.
So we have to redefine Indian summer. Right now, I don't see anything really getting cold around here until the end of October. And we could talk more about long-range forecasting and hurricane next week. But right now, the tropics are quiet, which is nice.
Okay, good. All right, enjoy the Horicon Marsh, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Glad I was able to greet you guys from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
Best little town by a dam site.
Send photos.
That damn beaver.
Okay. Talk to you later, Rick. All right. There he goes.
And we do have a comment from a listener.
Yes.
That is now false summer. It's not Indian summer, it's false summer.
So it's false summer. So I see, and I thought about that, and I thought, is that an insult to call it Indian summer? It doesn't seem like it, but I don't know. But
look it up.
False summer, I guess we'll figure that out. All right. Woo. Okay. Want to thank Nina Kraus, PhD, for being on the show today. That's right. Go get the book of Sound Mind, How Our Brain Constructs a Meaningful Sonic World. Thanks to meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Thanks to Kathleen for all the help she did this week. Thanks to Legato, who's disappeared, came inside and disappeared. And to Basil the dog, who's probably still on the porch. So until next time, I guess all we've got to say is go green or
go home.
Stadler?
Yeah, what?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.